The Mavs have now won 7 straight games, one of those by almost 40 points against the 2-seeded Thunder. You can point to a number of factors, like the addition of PJ Washington or Daniel Gafford, but I think it really comes down to the way both Luka and Kyrie have been playing. When these two first became a duo, the critics were loud. Concerns about fit, narratives that both need the ball to succeed. Right now though, we're seeing just how much offensive synergy exists there, and how Dallas is going to cause some nightmares for playoff defenses. Throughout the entire Luka era, the Mavs have played really slow, but Kyrie likes to play fast, so they've adjusted. This is the first time in Luka's career that his team has been above the league average in pace, and that's not only a result of Kyrie taking it to the house himself. Luka's bought in. When he gets the ball in the backcourt, he's looking for outlets, and the rest of the team is running, so you get some really nice possessions in the open floor. To utilize Kyrie's skill set in the half court, they run a decent amount of set action for him. This time it's a quick give and go with Luka up top to get him running downhill, where he showcases his unrivaled touch as a finisher. Most of the time though, it's these corner pin down screens that allow him to curl towards the ball and attack on the move. With a little bump and floater, he's got himself an easy 2. As we all know though, their offense is very Luka-centric, which is only natural when you have one of the best on-ball creators in NBA history. The Mavs half-court game consists of lots of ball screens and spread pick and roll, where he's a threat to turn the corner on a drive, and as a defense you definitely don't want him getting downhill. As a result, you sort of have to throw aggressive coverages to keep him away from the paint, to which he'll counter as a playmaker by picking apart any rotations. Now, the question Jason Kidd and the coaching staff had to ask themselves is, how can you maximize Kyrie's value while Luka's the one running the show? A lot of that simply comes down to positioning on the court. Sometimes they'll spot him up in the weak side corner, knowing that Luka can make the skip pass every time, and he's way too good of a shooter to ignore. Even when it feels like Kyrie's not involved in a play, his presence as a floor spacer is felt on nearly every possession. As Luka sets up the action and Dwight Powell frees up on a roll, DiVincenzo should be the one sliding down to tag, but he's gotta respect Kyrie in that corner. As a result, he's late to rotate when Dwight gets the ball, and it leads to an easy 2. It isn't just the outside shooting though. Kyrie's a really smart mover without the ball and knows when to cut. So on a play like this where Luka gets blitzed and creates a 4-on-3, he immediately dives baseline and gets above the rim for a lob. Here's another example. The defense starts to load up on Luka, so Kyrie just floats down the lane, which collapses the opposite corner, and with a simple extra pass they've got a wide open triple. Another thing you'll see the Mavs do to weaponize Kyrie is actually use him as the screener, and this creates all sorts of problems. If the defense wants to run their normal blitz or hedge, then you're giving Kyrie an advantage to attack. Not exactly the best decision. Here's another example from that same game. Luka draws 2 to the ball, leaving Kyrie wide open on a pop. The scorekeepers might as well go ahead and add 3 points. Then as soon as the Knicks decided to try a softer coverage, Luka immediately turns the corner and works his way to the paint, putting the entire defense in rotation as a simple kickout and extra pass results in a wide open jumper. When a guard is screening, it's really tough to keep Luka from touching the paint. You can see Blake Wesley getting ready to meet him early, meaning that when he instead rejects it, there's nobody to stop him from getting all the way to the rim. Defenses pretty much have to perfectly execute a show and recover to not give up any advantages, but all that does is clear out space for Luka to isolate, once again pressuring the rim and kicking it out to a shooter for 3. Sometimes the Mavs will reverse these actions, with Luka screening for Kyrie. This is a go-to when they want Luka to hunt for favorable switches, and once he gets it, he'll set up in the mid-post for an isolation. This time he draws a foul, and on the very next possession they go to it again. Luka gets the switch, sets up with Kyrie just 1 pass away, and the two play a little game of hot potato until Luka eventually draws a double, leaving the sharpshooter on an island. When Kyrie's just 1 pass away from Luka like this, it really makes the defense pick their poison. You don't want to leave Grayson Allen in single coverage, but when Booker sits at the nail, That creates too long of a closeout to effectively recover. Luka will set up on an open side of the floor for isolations, and if that second defender even thinks about helping, it's getting moved to Kyrie, who's probably going to knock down that three. And here's the problem that creates for defenses. Luka is averaging 1.09 points per possession as an isolation scorer. Kyrie is shooting just under 47% on catch and shoot threes, which is the equivalent of 1.40 points per possession. The best half-court offense in the NBA is averaging 1.1 points per possession, so in other words, neither is a good choice. What defenses end up doing is bringing extra defenders from different spots on the floor. Instead of Kyrie's man loading up, you're going to see Kenrich Williams come over early from the weak side, leaving nobody to protect the paint from a lob. Sending defenders from the other side of the court makes it way tougher to recover. All Luka has to do is make a simple pass to the wing, and all of a sudden the defense is in a scramble, leading to what else but a corner three. I think it's pretty clear that Kyrie's a seamless fit into Luka ball. He can spot up in the weak side corner, or one pass away to finish plays and provide spacing. He can be used as a screener to create matchup problems. But what about when he's the one running the offense? I talked about how they'll use Luka as a screener. That isn't only for switches, as Kyrie can use the space to attack a lane himself, where we already talked about his finishing. You'll see some set plays thrown in there as well. This time Luka's the second screener in a Spain pick and roll, and pops to the wing where he finds some room to fire off a three of his own. Luka's most valuable asset away from the ball though, is his ability to space the floor by just simply existing. Typically when Kyrie comes off this handoff, you'd expect some sort of resistance at the nail, but Mikal Bridges is too worried about hugging Luka on the perimeter, so there's a lane to attack down the middle as he gets to the rim. This is a pretty consistent theme whenever Kyrie goes to work. He attacks the middle of the floor and there's no help, and with all of that space, I'm not sure how you're supposed to guard this. It really doesn't matter where Luka stands on the court, his man is pretty much always going to stay glued. With him deep on that wing, Kyrie really only has one man to beat, which he doesn't have much trouble doing. This time Luka's actually all the way out at half court, and his man is stuck to him like super glue, so the offense is quite literally playing 4-on-4. Kyrie does draw a second defender, to which he counters by kicking it out to Josh Green for a corner three. When sharing the floor with Luka, Kyrie essentially has an open gym to work with one-on-one, and as one of the craftiest scorers in NBA history, that's going to lead to lots of good offense. Remember that graphic I showed earlier with the efficiency of different play types? Well, Kyrie's isolations over the last 2 seasons have been all the way up at 1.17 points per possession, once again showing how impossible it is to game plan for this duo. Obviously, you don't want Kyrie getting a bucket, but as soon as that help comes, you're leaving Luka. Once again, it's a case of picking your poison. He's attempting a career-high 2 catch-and-shoot threes per game, which might not seem like a lot. In other seasons though, he's usually at about 1, so a noticeable increase in volume, and he's making 41.5% of them. That's some nice production. With that said, it's not even the shooting that's the biggest threat. What defenses are really worried about after helping off of Luka is letting him catch the ball with a lane to attack, cause now you're back to dealing with his driving game. Just to quickly recap, the Mavs are still running a lot of Luka ball, but they've found ways to make Kyrie an off-ball weapon, whether that's by spotting him up in the weak side corner, one pass away on the wing, or by using him as a screener. Then when it's in Kyrie's hands, Luka's either screening himself or creating a boatload of space by standing deep on the wing. You sprinkle in some tactical stuff, whether that's playing with more pace or running set action in the half court, and when it all comes together, you get an unguardable offense, regardless of who the other 3 guys are. In 700 minutes together this season, the Mavs have produced a scorching 123.7 offensive rating. It's clear that the two can coexist at the highest level when starting and closing games, but everything in between is a stagger. When Luka's in the game without Kyrie, you get classic heliocentric hoops, spread pick and roll, open side isolations, he's in control of everything and getting everyone involved. Then when it's Kyrie without Luka, he's the one taking on a bigger load. Way more pick and roll and ISO stuff himself, as he's asked to be more of a playmaker for the guys around him. Actually, I think Kyrie's ability to shift between roles is one of the most fascinating things about him as a player. In the time he's played with Luka on the floor this season, he's been a high-level number 2, scoring 25 points on above average efficiency without turning the ball over. Then in the minutes without Luka, he's looked like an elite number 1, up to 31 points and 8 assists per 75, while actually becoming even more efficient. I'm not as worried about individual numbers though. What I care about is how the team's performing. I already mentioned the 123.7 with both. When it's just Luka, they're just under 120. And with Kyrie, they're up to 124. No, that doesn't mean Kyrie should be the true number 1. It just shows how in any installment with at least one of those guys, the Mavs are a top tier offense. And then with neither on, well, you get the picture. All that's to say, despite being pretty heavily critiqued, this backcourt is as deadly as they come. Both have been playing some of the best basketball of their careers, with and without each other, as the Mavs, who have been decimated by injuries, now sit at 6th in the West. With the way they've been playing recently, I wouldn't be surprised if that number continues to rise, and definitely wouldn't be surprised if these two absolutely torch any defense who stands in their way come playoff time. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of this duo. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.